Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the JKSC podcast. My name is Karina John, and today we are joined by a remarkable voice in contemporary Indian and global discourse, Sunanda Vashisht ma'am. She is a writer, a political commentator, a columnist based in Houston, with bylines in publications like First Post, DNA, Indian Express, Houston Chronicle, Economic Times, and more. Sunandaji has written extensively on the conflict in Jammu and Kashmir, and in 2019, she made history by testifying at the US Congress Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission, becoming the first person ever to speak about the genocide of Kashmiri Pandits in that forum, a moment that resonated globally. She is also a very seasoned podcaster, having hosted My End podcast and currently leads the Epicenter podcast series. Most recently, she served as the moderator for the 2025 annual Tagore Talk featuring Sanjeev Sanyal and serves on the Academic Council of the Jonarja Institute of Genocide and Atrocity Studies. Sunandaji, it is truly a pleasure to have you on this show, and I welcome you. And we look forward to indulging in enlightening conversations with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Karina. It is my honor and privilege to be here. Thank you.
I have been waiting to ask this question first. In 2019, you made a significant and historic contribution by representing the Kashmiri Pandit voice at the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission of the US Congress. And your testimony, it went viral and making it the first time that the genocide and human rights violation that was faced by the Kashmiri Pandit community, it was actually brought to the attention of the US lawmakers in such a direct and powerful way. Could you walk us through this experience of preparing and delivering that testimony?
Okay. When I reveal this to people, no one believes me. But the fact is, there was no preparation. There was no time to prepare. So what happened was, if I take you back to those days, so if you remember, August 5th is when 2019 is when the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A happened. So world over, there was huge flutter, and everywhere, there were in all capitals of the world, there was chatter that what is going to happen, how are we handling this, and all that. So there were diplomatic parleys happening, and the other side was also doing a lot of things that everything is going to, get destroyed now. There will be no Kashmir. People will, suddenly tanks will start rolling in Jammu and Kashmir. Everybody will be killed, and there will be this. There was a lot of propaganda going on from the other side. So in that context, United States Congress, they do these hearings where they invite prominent people to come and speak on a global issue or a domestic issue. In this case, it was a global issue, so that they can brief lawmakers, senators, or congressmen about what is going on. They typically invite subject matter experts or people who have some kind of information about it, so that lawmakers can be briefed. And this is all held in camera. And typically, it is an exercise to not, in real sense, it's an exercise to dispense information, but that's not how it is done. Typically, one side, or that the left liberal side always has some monopoly over who will get invited, what will they say. So the minute they act as gatekeepers, and once the gatekeeping is set, then the ordinary people, they don't know. They think these are these are all the voices and these are all the viewpoints there are. So, but the gatekeeping has already been done. So what happened here also, the gatekeeping was done. They held two hearings. One was held 2 weeks before mine, and that hearing didn't really go well for the Indian side, or for the side of, let's say, I always call it for the side of dharma, for the side of truth. That hearing didn't really go well. that well. But the second hearing, once, when I saw, I think it was one afternoon like this, and I saw. So what happens is they don't even make these names public, because they don't want, as I said, there are gatekeepers sitting who don't want anyone to go there. But if they make the name public, then obviously there will be hue and cry, and people will say, well, these people, there is no diversity of opinion and diversity of thought here. If you've got five people who believe in same things, who don't have any diversity of opinion, then what kind of hearing is this? Then you might as well sit in your family room and you might talk. So somehow, 48 hours before the event, I happened to see the names, and I happened to see that there is another hearing. And I looked at it and I said, there are only 48 hours. I'm in Houston. And I didn't even think about myself at that point, but I thought that this is happening in DC and this is not right. Something needs to happen. And as luck would have it, I tweeted, and those days it was Twitter, now it is X. I tweeted about it and I said, well, if the lawmakers, or if the US Congress, Tom Lantos Commission of Human Rights really wants to know the truth, then it needs to know truth from all sides, and then determine what it is. You cannot just listen to one kind of voices. And so I wrote a huge thread, those days we used to write threads, and I wrote a huge thread, and I said, I'm appalled because there is no Kashmiri Pandit voice here. There is only one demographic, and they all, they're public people, so their viewpoints are well known. So how is this a hearing? This is a facade. As luck would have it, I don't know what happened, but within 24 hours, 48 hours prior to this, I wrote this thread. 24 hours after that, I received an email. And I think the community and everybody in Washington, D.C., and a lot of people wrote to these people and said, this is a sham. Might as well not have this hearing if you are going to have just one kind of people there. And so I received an email saying that, would you like to testify before the Congress? So now I had to make plans immediately because I live in Houston and I had to go to DC, but that was not a problem. I was thinking that, well, these are all human rights lawyers. These are all things. Do I need preparation or anything? And then suddenly I realized, why do I need preparation for something that is my own life story? I mean, I am just going to go and speak the truth. When you are speaking the truth, and this is something I do on a daily basis on an academic level, and then there is a personal story, and I also work on Kashmir as a scholar and as an academic, and I said, why do I need to worry about anything? So I will just go and speak the truth. And truth really needs no companions or nothing. So I just wrote back to them. I said, I'll be happy to go. I immediately booked my flight. And next morning, as I took an early morning flight, I think it was at 2 o'clock. I took an early morning flight and I straight away reached Capitol Hill, and they checked me in and I saw people. I knew who they were. So there were 5 people. It was a lopsided. I even said that in the middle of the thing. I said, this is a lopsided panel. There was only I'm only one here. But at the end of the panel, the chairperson of the panel did say that, we're thankful you're here. And even this one voice was more than everybody else. But yeah, what had happened was, while other people, I think I was the 3rd or 4th person to speak. So I don't want to accuse them of this, but one, you make your own mind up, and B, they gatekeep it all. But somehow the room was full of speakers were of one opinion, and the room was also full of people of one ideology or
I mean,
one thing.
they came with a predetermined opinion and
Yes. So
predetermined ideology.
somehow the whole world didn't know, but those people had already been told that you come and you sit in the thing, and so that the public opinion, it would appear that public opinion is with those 4 speakers and not with me.
Yeah.
So, because it wasn't the invitation wasn't sent out to everyone. It wasn't like a public invitation, and anybody could, sign in and come in. I think it was the invites, or somehow, as I said, gatekeeping happens. It was only given to few people, and it was only the other side who was there, and it were their cheerleaders who were there. So when I came, I was what we call in this thing out of syllabus. So my thing was completely out of syllabus. They didn't expect it. So then they started heckling me while I was speaking. And I could hear, and it's a shame. It's a shame in the United States, in power of United States, seat of United States government in US Capitol Hill. I heard "Hum kya chahte azadi" slogans going on when I was speaking. And at that point, I was worried that can other people hear me or not? Can the panel hear me when I'm testifying? So at one point, I just stopped talking. I said, if they cannot give me the minimum courtesy of hearing me, then there is no point. And at that point, I think the panel, the chairman, and everybody got very upset, and they said, you need to give her the basic courtesy of hearing. You need to be quiet. And that's how. But I could hear separatist slogans being said in US Capitol Hill that day. So yeah, it was quite an event. And once that was done, then the question answers happened. It's all on YouTube now, and I was able to put my viewpoint forward. And when you speak truth, somehow, I don't know where the courage comes from and where the conviction comes from. I must have sounded very convincing, because even though in that room I was being heckled, the speech went viral and the whole world found out. So even though they wanted to gatekeep that whole thing, they didn't want anyone to hear, they didn't want anyone to know, but thanks to technology, the speech was everywhere, and this viewpoint got heard. And I said it in that speech also. I said, I am not here speaking on my behalf. I'm speaking on behalf of everyone whose voices have been extinguished, whose voices have been silenced, who cannot be here today, who were killed in the prime of their youth, or who were killed trying to save their families. I speak on their behalf. So I should not be looked at as just one singular person, but I am speaking on everybody's behalf that day. So that's how it happened.
I can't even imagine the kind of adrenaline you would have faced at that time. But I think, like you said, you didn't need to per se practice anything and go, because it's a very part of you that has experienced something like that. So I think courage just finds its way. And I'll be a
I
little bit
guess.
honest, I think as women, we naturally have inbuilt courage when it comes to facing such situations. So
So I won't say, Karina, that I wasn't scared. Of course, I was scared when I was walking in there. But once I started speaking, I don't know who was speaking through me. Honestly, I mean, I don't know if you believe in these things, but after that day, I do really believe that there is an upper force. There is a force somewhere. Somebody was speaking through me and was making me say those things. And because, as I said, I did not have any preparations or speech or anything. Whatever I said, I had scribbled, and just I didn't have enough time. I had just scribbled. They said there was another thing. They said before coming in, they said you have to give the speech in. You cannot speak. They tried all kinds of hurdles. They said whatever you say, you have to first put it in writing and give in the speech, and this it will be approved, and then Q&A will be whatever you say. So then I didn't have time. I was planning. I was in the flight, so I scribbled whatever I could and sent it to them, and that's what it was. But it is something, as I always say, it is something that is part of me. So I did not need any preparation at all.
I think it's their way of kind of filtering the kind of speech you will be giving, just to see beforehand what you're going to speak and if it's going to really be appealing to the people or cause a
Yeah,
commotion.
yeah. Gatekeeping, as I said, there's gatekeeping everywhere.
Yeah.
You
And
have
were
to
there
break the
any
gates
kind
to
of,
get in.
yeah, yes. I think in this case we just push through the gates and
Hmm.
go. So, were there any kind of challenges that you faced emotionally or diplomatically in bringing this issue to an international platform? And what kind of impact do you believe this testimony had on an entire global understanding of the Kashmiri Pandit exodus?
So see, I have been speaking about this for all my life, honestly. And then when I took up my career and when I started writing about it, so there are two aspects to my life. One is a part of me that I am a genocide survivor. So I speak as a genocide survivor. But at some point I realized that just speaking as a victim is not going to be enough. I also need to study this issue in a very scholarly manner so that I can then speak at the platforms where there is academic discussion going on or where there is scholarly discussion going on, because that's where we have real impact, right? So then I tried, I just didn't just confine myself to what I knew. I wanted to know the entire history of Kashmiri Pandits. I wanted to know the entire history of genocide. I wanted to study genocide as a subject, which I eventually did. I did study eventually, and now I even, we as part of Jonah Raja Institute, we prepare genocide scholars, genocide studies scholars. But I needed to understand what genocide is, because what has happened with Kashmiri Pandits is not ordinary. We're not riot victims. We're not, it's not something that you can dismiss as saying, well, two sides got into a fight and there was a lot of violence and this is what happened. Those kind of things happen. But this isn't that. This is a continual genocide of last 700 years. So it needs to be studied in a very scholarly fashion. So that's another part of me. So I dedicated my life to studying about genocides around the world, and then comparative genocide studies, and then the UN definition of genocide, and then we throw the word genocide just like this, but it is a legal term. Genocide has to be proven in a court. So United Nations actually gives, the entire convention says that following things have to be satisfied in order for something to be called a genocide. So I have said that amongst all those things, we satisfy all requirements, so to speak, of a genocide. So this is a continual genocide. So all that I have been doing at a very academic level also. But what happens is, first of all, you will hear a lot of this word gatekeeping from me today, because that's what I've faced. So when I started writing, in newspapers wouldn't publish me because they wanted me to write India administered Kashmir, the style guide they follow. They wanted me to, they did not want me to use the word ethnic cleansing or a genocide. No way, but not even ethnic cleansing. They did not want us to use the word internally displaced, or they did not want us to use the word genocide survivors. They wanted us to use the word migrants. Uh, so all that we have been fighting, all those battles, not just me, there are other people like me. So those battles we have been fighting for a very long time, since, I mean, our parents' generation first, and then once we were old enough, that we've been fighting this generation. 3 generations now have been affected by this, that we know, of course, 7 generations, but 3 generations currently that I know. So our parents' generation first fought, and now then once we fought, but what happened, we had the benefit of internet. So
Yes.
once internet opened for us, um, then we started blogging and we started bypassing all these gatekeepers. And I said, we are going to do our own thing. So we used to blog, and then social media opened a whole new world for us. Now we had the platform. And once a little bit of popularity set in, for lack of a better word, then those newspapers and those media portals now wanted us to write for them, because of course, we had already reached the audience, and they wanted that audience as well. So all that had been happening, but nothing had happened at the governmental level. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it was happening at a civil society level. It was not happening at the governmental level. So we were fighting in India, and we were fighting globally, because genocide is a global crime. The whole world, if genocide happens anywhere, and because India is the signatory of Genocide Convention, it is imperative on genocide scholars and the state, where the genocide has happened, to investigate genocide and then tell the whole world why this genocide happened, what are we doing to prevent it, so that future genocides can be prevented. Because after all, why are we doing all this? What has happened has happened. We are just now preventing future genocides in any part of the world. So, and in Kashmir, of course. But at governmental level, nothing had happened. This was the first time that, United States government, seat of power, heard these words. So Kashmir had already been spoken about because terrorism. Kashmir had already been, President Clinton called it, the most vulnerable place, the most dangerous place in the earth. And he said, if Third World War will start from somewhere, it will start from Kashmir at that point. That's what he had said. So Kashmir was already spoken. It's not like Kashmir was not spoken about. Kashmiri Pandits were never spoken about. So when Kashmir was spoken about, it was all about terrorists. It was all about Pakistan. It was all about the bad characters somehow, the bad actors of the story, but the original inhabitants, original, aboriginals, somehow we never existed. So that is what changed, the testimony changed that day. And we were like, we also have a voice. Somebody needs to hear our side of the story because we were there. I was there. And this entire community of 500,000 people, 5 lakh people were there. You need to hear their testimony as well, because only then will you be able to know what was happening there. And then you cannot say this was a fight for self-determination. This was a fight for election reform, or this is a fight for this. Pure jihad. And we will tell you why it was a jihad, because we were attacked. So our voice is very important. You cannot take it out. So I think that's what that testimony did. And after that, we have seen a lot of interest from, of course, the government of India as well, and all governments generally. And the final hope really is that Kashmiri Pandit genocide should be declared as a genocide. We haven't won that battle yet. We're still fighting, but at least the awareness is there. The fact that you, Karina John, are talking to me today, that's my win. That's probably because of this podcast. This testimony, otherwise you wouldn't.
I agree. There's actually never a straightforward answer as to what exactly happened with the Kashmiri Pandits, but how often, I did my graduation in law, I did my master's in law, so I know about how important it is with regards to the Kashmiri Pandit issue. But when I see on the outer side, people only talk about two things: it's either the terrorism or it's Pakistan. And like now, of late now, because there's a India versus Pakistan match, people are focusing on that now, so nobody technically focus on the Kashmiri Pandit issues. And that actually brings me to the next question, that I have a few friends who are Kashmiri Pandits, but they don't get to go back to their land. And I'm sure there are so many other Kashmiri Pandits, you also being one of them. Y'all make up, y'all are an intrinsic part of Jammu and Kashmir and that entire social and cultural fabric. I'm sure your heart desires to go back to the valley, to those same lanes, and to the next generation, to experience that kind of ancestry that has been in Kashmir. But I think there are so many challenges and concerns. But what do you think influences, say, what would influence your decision if you were to decide, I need to go back into those valleys? Is there any kind of decision making drive that comes in?
Number one is security. What has happened with us, number one is security. Every time we feel, okay, maybe something will happen, things are getting better, there is a targeted attack. Even from after 2019 also, there have been targeted attacks. Kashmiri Pandits have been attacked in Kashmir, you can look up. There was a Rahul Bhatt case who worked in Tehsildar office. So there are a bunch of people who have been sent as part of Prime Minister's package who work for the government, but Kashmiri Pandits who were sent to Kashmir to sort of create an environment, so that they said if these people who are working for the government, 5,000 people or so, if they go, maybe if things will be conducive. They started attacking the package employees as well. So one person, Rahul Bhatt, was killed. So every time something happens, every time you think that, okay, maybe we can have the courage to go back, terrorist strike back. So there is something happens, and now Pahalgam has happened. And before that, also a lot of things have happened. After our current exodus, which is part of this seventh exodus, which is part of this whole genocide, there have been many instances, even after 1990, there have been many mass massacres that have happened. So the problem here is, a lot of people ask me, are you going to wait for the last gun to be silent? Because if you are going to wait for that, it's never going to happen. And here is what I tell them. So we're not waiting for the last gun to be silent. Even we understand that government cannot provide security to everyone. Even we understand that, at some point, we have to, face the courage and go back. But here is what was decided by Kashmiri Pandit community in 1990 itself. Because remember, we have a 5,000-year-old history, and out of that, 700-year-old history of persecution by Islamic terrorists, by jihad. It's not something that has happened. This 1990 event cannot be seen in isolation, because we cannot see it in isolation. Our history is longer than that. From 1328, we've been seeing persecution. And let me give you a statistic. There have been, in 700 years, there have been 7 exoduses. That, Karina, means that every 100 years there has been an exodus. That means every third generation has seen a displacement and an exodus. Every third generation, which there is nothing like this in the world. There is no parallel to this. Even Jews have not gone through this.
And still somehow nobody speaks about this.
Even Jews were wandering for 2,000 years, but they have not had 700 years of continuous persecution. So what happened was, when the 7th exodus happened as part of our continual thing, the elders of the community, they got together and they said, what in Kashmir we said, Satyam Kaupatyam, which means the 7th is our last. We are not going to put ourselves through this cycle of, we go back again and something happens and then we go back again. We're not going to put ourselves through this cycle. And also imagine, in the 700 years ago, we started as 100% of the community. 700 years ago, Kashmiri Hindus were 100% of the community. In 1300s, in 1200s, we were 700%. Today, we're 100%. Today, we are just 1%. In 1990, we were 5%. That is what persecution has done to us. Today, we are 1% of the community. So when this 1% of the community has to go back, they have to think of we cannot put ourselves as sitting ducks again. So then we also understand that Kashmir, we cannot have, no government in the world can provide security to every human, every person. So what we decided was that, in 1990 itself, that there should be a reorganization of Jammu and Kashmir. And there should be a land specially carved out for the genocide victims of Jammu and Kashmir. Why this land carved out? Because then what we will have is, we will have it will be run by nationalist forces. It will be a union territory, which is a federally run territory. It will have its, once it's run by union territory, at that time in 1990, we didn't know that Article 370 is going to be abrogated, but they had at that point said that it will be run without, the Constitution of India will be free flowing. There will be no two citizen status. We will all be citizens of India. And then the legal forces, the administrative forces, the governmental, the bureaucracy, all these legal system and every administrative system, they will all be nationalist forces. Once you have nationalist forces taking care of these, system, then we feel the police is run by police and courts and the government and the bureaucracy. These are nationalist forces, and then you feel a little bit of courage. Okay, now everything. If somebody does something, he'll be caught. If somebody is trying to do something, there will be people on our side. Because what we've seen in 1990 is, when the entire community was thrown out, the government capitulated. Nobody came to our rescue. Nobody came to our rescue. Why? Because there was infiltration in Jammu and Kashmir police also. There was infiltration in legal, in courts as well. There was infiltration in bureaucracy. Kashmiri Pandit bureaucrats were, targeted and killed. The first or the second major killing was of Justice Neelkant Ganju. So people, all of the prominent people who were in bureaucracy or legal things or everybody, they were killed. So, and till now, not one person has been held accountable. Till now, not one person has been held accountable for all those genocidal crimes that have happened, Vanessa. So you tell me, how can any community go back knowing that their perpetrators are running wild in that community, knowing that no one has been punished? So there is no question of going back like this. So that is why we are saying we understand that genocidal, so much time has happened. Genocidal crime is hard to prove. So why do you do that? Reallocate a separate territory for us, which will be for all the genocide victims. All the genocide victims of, Jammu and Kashmir and India. Let them live there. Let them, run. I mean, of course, it will be federally run and it will be run complete. Constitution of India will be, a writ of Constitution of India will be there. But that's how you need to do it. There is no other way, because right now, in absence of your perpetrators even being punished, I don't think the community feels comfortable or the community feels the courage to go back.
I think even though the heart yearns, your mind knows
Oh
there's
yeah,
no
I have
such
seen people. I mean, I can give you personal stories. I try to stay away from personal stories, but my grandmother, she never liked. She was in Jammu all this while. She never liked water of Jammu because somehow she used to say it's not cold enough or it's not cool enough. You would give her frozen water from the refrigerator, and she would say it doesn't taste like Kashmir. Till the last breath, till she was alive, she kept saying that I'm thirsty. Not because she wasn't drinking water, but she wasn't drinking water from her own home. And she kept saying this water doesn't quench my thirst. I can give you thousands of stories like this where an entire generation perished hoping to go home. Now, next generation after that, which is our parents' generation, they are getting older. They are losing hope. And my generation is the last connect we have. In my family, I was the last person to be born in Kashmir. After me, no one. So, we are losing connect. We understand how time is of essence. So we are fighting.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
And there's always some kind of disconnection between the ground reality in Jammu and Kashmir and the narrative that is told and portrayed internationally.
Of
And
course.
even though people try writing journals and research papers, and even Bollywood making its entrance trying to show the truth stories, how can this gap be responsibly addressed? And possibly, what role could the diaspora play in bridging this?
Diaspora is playing a huge role because a lot of mischief is being played in UK and United States, to be honest. A lot of mischief is being played in these capitals. And somehow they, even after 9/11 and even after Europe is going through a siege, somehow they don't understand. Before 9/11, no one in America understood what Islamic terrorism is. After 9/11, yes, they understand it, but they somehow don't think that we are victims as well. There is a very cozy connection or a very cozy alliance of leftists and jihadists. Very cozy alliance. Karina, I never worry about the guy who picks the gun. I never worry about the terrorist. You know why? Because that guy who has picked up the gun has now a target on his back. Indian state is so powerful today that whoever picks a gun, give 12 weeks, 14 weeks, 15 weeks, 1 year, they will be eliminated. because we know who the enemy is. Once the person picks up the gun, then you know who the enemy is. But people who pick the gun, they are always the minuscule. They are a minority. Even when Kashmir, burnt in 1990, how many guns do you think were there? How many terrorists do you think were there at that point, even at its peak? 300, 400, 1200 at its peak. But so you're not ever afraid of those people. They can do run havoc. But who are you afraid of? People who are behind these gun wielding terrorists.
The invisible
In
force.
the intellect, people who give them intellectual cover fire, people who give them, who sit in capitals of big nations, whether it's London or Washington D.C. or any European capital, and say that these people who are killing innocent people in Kashmir, they are fighting for self-determination, whereas there is absolutely zero evidence that they are fighting for any self-determination. They cannot prove it, but somehow they're saying, or they are fighting for their rights, or they are fighting for their being persecuted, and that's why they are fighting. I mean, or India is a colonial force in Kashmir. That is another thing that you will hear all the time. There has never been a Kashmir without India. There has never been an India without Kashmir. Never. In the history, there has never been. So the entire Indian civilization owes so much to Kashmir. I mean, Kashmir is the crowning glory of Indian civilization. How can India without Kashmir? So now they're saying India is a colonial force. Kashmir, all that is rubbish. So what they will do is they want to get rid of the 5,000-year-old history. They want to remember just those last 700 years or last 500. But who gets to decide where history starts? My history starts 5,000 years ago. I have been in my bones. I can feel it, whether or not somebody wrote it correctly or not, because it has been passed to me. So when it has been passed to me, I am not going to, as long as we are alive, we're not going to let anybody else say that no, history starts just 700 years ago. History starts where we say it starts. So it is always this intellectual cover fire. This is where the diaspora can come. This is where you have to challenge them to debates. This is where you have to challenge them to prove what they are saying. Prove Kashmir is colonized by India. Prove it. How? So, use these things, and even things like this, what we are doing right now, debates and discussions and all this material, social media has made it so much easier. But we need to spread the truth. I'm not saying we need to spread my side of the story. I'm saying we need to spread the truth. The truth is that there has been Islamic jihadi onslaught on Kashmir in last 700 years. If there is, I can even go to this point. If there is a colonizing force in Kashmir, it is Islam, because Islam didn't exist. Islam came from outside. So the only thing that has come from outside to the land of Kashmir is Islam.
Yes.
Hinduism and Buddhism and everything has always existed there. It is the Janani, it is the mother of Kashmir Shaivism. So if there is a colonizing force, it has to be Islam. Let's now, when you put your argument in this manner, then you have a debate. Then you have a thing. So instead of giving them a free run, wherever they go, it is good to challenge them, and that's what diaspora can do. That's what I feel.
I think the entire explanation that you gave, it fits so well with that kind of question, and especially when you said that the colonial force should be given to Islam. It is so true. I remember having this as part of my debate in my 5th year, and this was what I had said, that even though I am not a Kashmiri Pandit, I am not a Hindu, I can still say, even by reading a little brief history, right history,
Truth
that
is true.
Islam never existed in the north. It has been brought and now it has spread. But that became an entire big issue in college, and they were like, oh, you're targeting the religion. And I'm like, I am merely stating facts. But more than 6 years after the abrogation of 370, Do you think there have been any political, social, or economic dynamics of Jammu and Kashmir that has evolved or
Yes,
changed, or
yes,
has there been any kind of challenge after that to shape
yes.
the region's trajectory?
Yes. So a lot has happened in, for a long time, nothing happened, and a lot has happened since 2019. I have to credit the government of the day for this. Um, First of all, removal of everybody now is an Indian citizen.
Yes.
Because Kashmiris, they sort of owed allegiance to two constitutions. That should not happen, because that is right there, you are sowing the seed of discontent. And we can probably do a whole podcast on 370 and what it was. And if I go into the details, it will take away time from your podcast. But I could tell you how 370 in itself was a force of separatism. 370, the article, the lifeblood of separatism was coming from Indian Constitution, Karina. Article 370, because it gave people right to have their own institution. Do you know there was a separate penal code in Kashmir?
Yes, yes. I remember studying that because I had IPC as one of my subjects, and then we had to study a separate
So
one
can
when
you
it came.
imagine that? How can integration happen? So I'm telling you, the seed of separatism was in Indian Constitution itself. And for 70 years, nobody did anything about it. So kudos to the people who thought that 370 needs to go and integration needs to, there should be no ambiguity. There should be no ambiguity whatsoever. So that was taken, then reorganization happened. Ladakhis were given their own way to, federally united union territory, which they have been asking for long, because they have been with Kashmir, everybody has been, Dogras of Jammu have been feeling bad because they don't get as much attention, or their issues don't get as much attention, because everything has been engulfed in terrorism of Kashmir, which is in the four districts of Kashmir. So the reorganization was very good, and Jammu and Kashmir together. So a lot of things have happened well. There's a lot of stuff that has happened on the development side. I do know that roads and water bodies have been taken care of. If you remember, Kashmir, in water bodies are very important in Kashmir because there are lots of lakes and things, and those are the lungs of Kashmir. So water bodies have been taken care of, roads have been taken care of, economy is getting a little better with tourism, and of course then something like Pahalgam happens and it takes you one step ahead and five steps backward. uh, um, so abrogation of 370 was never supposed to take care of terrorism. We have to look at them as two separate entities. Terrorism in Kashmir will always exist as long as we have the neighbor we have.
Yes.
So it was not going to take care of that. So when people say, Are, if Article 370 was taken care of, then why did Pahalgam happen? Two things have nothing to do with each other. So Pahalgam and all that, our forces will ensure that no more Pahalgams happen. But there will always be a threat of Pahalgam because of the neighbor we have. Is always going to try things. But what has happened is, in people, that ambiguity has gone away. In people now know that their future lies with India, and that is the only way to go about it. Kashmiri Pandits have been trying that they want further reorganization. So at least this one reorganization has happened. So they're hoping that there will be further reorganization. They're talking to the government at the time, and they're working on it. So hopefully we will see another reorganization in future. But it has everything since 2019 has been a step ahead and not a step backward. That's what I can say. Before that, we had status quo or we were going backwards. But after 2019, we are only seeing step ahead and we are seeing progress. And I am hopeful that another reorganization will happen soon.
That's actually very nice. Finally, to be given the clarity that yes, we are one, not two in one, but that kind of
Yes,
clarity doesn't
exactly.
really make
Yeah.
a lot of difference. And since you mentioned Pahalgam attack, does this kind of signal a tactical shift in terrorism, such as efforts to radicalize youth, disrupt tourism, or is it just the continuation of this old recycled pattern of religious motivated violence all the time?
Pahalgam clearly was packaged by Pakistan for the simple reason that they felt that Kashmir is going out of hand and they are no longer able to use Kashmir as a powder keg. And they will always find people in the valley who will sort of be their henchmen. So that has always happened. Pahalgam was designed and packaged and beautifully delivered to us from Pakistan, from Asim Munir. I mean, we know it now from his speeches and everything what General Asim Munir has been up to. And every time the army in Pakistan feels irrelevant or feels that they need to do something, and then they do something like Pahalgam, and they do that to disrupt, to show that Kashmir situation is still not resolved, or people are somehow not happy, or somehow look, it is their, it is indigenous. This terrorism is indigenous somehow, not showing that all support and everything is coming from Pakistan. All terrorism is being exported from there. So it is more of the same. Yes, it is continuation of the same jihad. The what is driving people to kill? If somebody was there and he was asked, "What is your faith?" and then that person was killed, or men were asked to drop their pants in Pahalgam and then they were killed. So it is clearly continuation of the jihad. So Pahalgam is continuation of the jihad. I call Kashmir first laboratory of jihad in the world. So that laboratory isn't, we are trying. I mean, it takes time. We are trying hard to work on it, but it takes time. Once in a while, an explosion will happen. And Pahalgam was another explosion. I mean, there are hundreds of Pahalgams that Indian security forces are trying to prevent every day. But then one Pahalgam happens. But yeah, it is further radicalization because this is the first time tourists were attacked. And this is the first time, Hindus have been killed forever, but this is the first time it was done so blatantly.
And
People
very targeted also.
very targeted. People were asked, "What is your faith?" They were asked to recite Kalma. And if they didn't
Yes.
recite Kalma, then they were killed. They were killed in front of their wives and things. And they were told, "Go tell Modi." Things like that. And that's why India nearly went to war with Pakistan for that, because it was so gruesome. It had to be, a retaliation was needed. So I am not saying that Pahalgams will not happen more. Pahalgams will happen, but at the same time, we also need to work on the rehabilitation of Kashmiri Pandit, and we should not confuse the two.
And
Terrorism, terrorism will happen. We somehow need to de-link these two issues. The
yes.
rehabilitation of Kashmiri Pandits is separate from the terrorism. Terrorism, we cannot get rid of. No abrogation or no rule, nothing we can get off. We can only contain it. Terrorism in Kashmir can only be contained, and the Indian government is doing a fabulous job of containing it. That's all that can be done.
That yes, with Operation Sindoor, yes, we kind of gave it
Yeah.
back to them, but we also, India's choice also came to respond through very formal diplomatic channels rather than retaliatory rhetoric immediately after the Pahalgam attack, with outreach through cross-party delegations that were sent across the world, especially with the US delegation led by my very favorite Shashi Tharoor. And how is this kind of perceived in Washington? Does this represent a strategic shift towards soft power projection or just a very defensive posture?
Uh, Both. And what has happened with India-US relationship after that, you sort of wonder how useful it was. They tried their best. The delegations tried their best, and I think they were sent in good faith, and it was the right thing to do. Because India is not a aggressive power. India is not what Mr. Tharoor said, if Pakistan let us alone, we would be happy. We would, because we don't want part of Pakistan. It's Pakistan that wants part of India. We want nothing to do with them, but they need to leave us alone. So I'm sure delegations did help. At least I don't know about UK. I haven't studied that as much, or European capitals. In United States, because I was here, they did have some very significant meetings, and they did impress upon the lawmakers and important people, as in who the aggressor was, why did India do what India did, and why India reserves the right to do the same in future. That was more important. And there was condemnation from all corners for Pahalgam. I don't think there was anyone who was even ambiguous. So they managed that there was anyone even ambiguous about what had happened in Pahalgam. There was complete condemnation, but the forces, the geopolitical forces that are at play are much bigger than these delegations. As you've seen, in last 1 month or so, the relationship between India and United States was almost touch and go. It's now, we feel that we are stabilizing again. But that happened right after that. So some people think it was fallout of Operation Sindoor, whatever it was. So geopolitical forces are much bigger. There is a lot that is going on in that sphere. So in a limited zone, those delegations were effective. In a larger picture, there is a lot more that needs to be done.
And how realistic, like, do you think is Pakistan's perceived shift towards stronger economic ties with the United States, including the recent landmark trade deal with reducing tariffs and opening up oil, mining, crypto sectors, given the very deeply entrenched influence of the military in the ongoing insurgencies in Balochistan? It's Kashmir focused policies that have fueled border instability and its long history of IMF bailouts.
Yeah. So I see this honeymoon ending pretty quickly, because I don't know who told President Trump that Pakistan has oil. Pakistan does not have oil. If Pakistan had oil, China would not just be sitting there and not extracting it. China does not have oil. You think if Pakistan has been a vassal state of China, Pakistan has been satellite state. If Pakistan had oil, you think China would not have been digging? So this is all everything that they've been feeding President Trump and wants to be fed that. There is some truth to the crypto deal, I hear. There is something going on. There is a huge challenge. I won't lie. There is a challenge with the new general who has come about. And after Afghanistan fell, we felt that the United States is going to withdraw from Central Asia, and they will have no interest in there. That's what we thought. And then we thought Pakistan, if America withdraws from Afghanistan, then what do they need Pakistan for? Somehow, what has happened is that, and this is my estimation, then I feel that India, they also have understood somehow, or they have told themselves that they don't need India anymore to counter China. Hence, they need a foothold in the region, and Pakistan can continue to be that foothold. Besides, Pakistan lets them do things to them that no other sovereign nation will let them do. So I'm sure there will be some exploitation of some resources, maybe critical minerals or whatever. There will be some exploitation given how Balochis will allow that. So they felt that here is Pakistan that is going to allow us to, utilize their thing. India is not going to do that. India is a sovereign nation, and India will not allow anybody. So I think there is a shift in United States policy a little bit, and they will soon learn the lesson, because Pakistan is probably planning something else soon, and they will learn that, because every time Pakistan gets this little bit of fillip from America, and they get a little bit of money from there, they don't use it for themselves, they use it for terrorist activities. So I have a feeling that some other more cross-border terrorism is going to be exported. Something is going to happen, and Pakistan will collapse again. So, but there is a shift in United States policy for now, a little bit a temporary shift that we have noticed. But Indian diplomats are working hard, and it is in the interest of United States to see what they are doing by strengthening Pakistan anymore.
I'm really glad. I think the amount of questions that I was sitting and making to ask you, I'm able to ask you all of them. And this brings me to my last question. I really want to know when uh how was the international community, particularly Washington, how was their reaction to how India's strategic maturity and the right to respond when Pahalgam attacked? And did it have kind of any impact on India's relation with the US, the way they saw us retaliating against the Pahalgam attack?
Yeah. I think no one expected, because given the history of India, that all the dossier games that we used to play, no one expected India to hit back. And when India hit back, and with the force it hit back, and with the responsibility it hit back. Remember, we never hit their civilian population, we never bombed any of their civilian areas when we could, but we didn't. We only attacked the military installations. And initially, India only attacked their terrorist camps, and we told the world that we are attacking only the terrorist camps. But and Pakistan decided to hit back, and when Pakistan decided to hit back, then India said, "Okay, now it is kosher to attack military installations." But India attacked only military installations and only military personnel. India never went attacking to civilian populations. Pakistan, on the other hand, did all this drone barrage, and if you know, in Jammu and all these places, a lot of homes were destroyed, and some civilian casualties also happened in that 4-day skirmish or 4-day small war. But I think a lot of people were not. A lot of people are in privately will tell you that they're amazed by the maturity, by the responsibility, and the courage that India showed in retaliating against Pahalgam, and the second day of Sindoor, what they did on the second day of Sindoor, hitting back military installations. There are reports, although we don't know, that there are reports that some American F-16s were that were parked in Noor Khan base were also attacked, not attacked, or at least damaged in those things. So the damage has been far. And just the other day, I saw that Pakistan is rebuilding its Noor Khan base again, even though they claim that nothing has been destroyed. But their military bases were destroyed. They can claim whatever they can claim. It's very difficult to get Pakistan to accept that they lost, because they're not that kind. They live in some other la la land, but the world, the strategic community knows, the military historians know, people who study this know that India had an upper hand that day.
And
So,
we kind of showed them that just because we're quiet all the time doesn't mean you can walk over us. When it's time,
correct,
we do give it back.
correct.
That was actually nice. I wish I could ask you more questions, but we're running very low on time. But it was a pleasure speaking to you. I felt I was back in one of my legal classes wherein we used to ask questions about Jammu and Kashmir and what happened with the Kashmiri Pandits. And I think even in theory, even in academics, in school, in colleges, I think they should really start reframing everything, because half my class, I remember, none of them were actually interested to know what happened to the Kashmiri Pandits. They were only bothered about uh, the violence that is going on between the Hindus and the Muslims and Pakistan issue.
We
The
don't frame our questions correctly.
yeah, I think that's what. Shweta, would you like to come in now?
Hmm.
Thank you, Sunanda ji. That was such a heartfelt conversation. And like Karina mentioned, it actually we could actually feel the emotions of the Kashmiri Pandit community today. And it's so important to revisit and re-understand for the rest of India, for the international diaspora, for the international community to understand the pain and that the community went through, and you have expounded that so beautifully today. Thank you so much for your time today, and we appreciate all that you have said today. Thank you.
Thank you,
Namaste.
Sunanda. Namaste.